Hello everybody, how are you all doing? Welcome back to Man City Unplugged, your very own Man City fan channel. The transfer window has just hotted up everything, especially around City. I mean, I do agree it's been hot around other clubs like your Arsenal's, like your Liverpool's and all of them since the beginning, but they needed to be. But especially around City, the transfer window has just hotted up yesterday. I mean, hotted up in this week, especially yesterday with us agreeing the Josko Guardiola deal, and I will speak about that a little bit more, and I'll tell you why the single player. I mean, I know a lot of rival fans, I know a lot of people would not accept it, but I think a single player in Josko Guardiola could literally change the way City play this season, change the way Pep Guardiola puts out his tactics, and we'll talk about all of that a little later. And I mean, everyone was looking for a domino effect in this transfer window. Everyone thought that the domino effect could probably be from a striker's end, like maybe Chelsea overpaying for Victor Osimhen 120, and then Napoli going with that 120 to procure another striker, or people were thinking of that sort of, or Harry Kane, for example. People were thinking of Bayern taking Harry Kane for £100 million, and then Spurs taking that £100 million and bringing in someone like a Dusan Blahovic, and then Juventus going with that money to bring in another striker. Everyone thought that that could probably be the domino effect of this season, but but that domino effect has not come. The domino effect has come from Osman Dembele. Osman Dembele leaving Barcelona was something which Xavi never expected. I mean, I was talking to one of my friend who was a Barca fan, and he was telling he was so sure. I think this was 2 3 weeks ago, and he was so sure that Osman Dembele will stay at Barcelona. There was no way Dembele was gonna go, and now Dembele goes from Barcelona. Barcelona suddenly have some cash, around 50 to 60 million euros, and now they can buy Joao Cancelo. They can even. I'm actually surprised. Let us talk about this. I'm actually surprised that Barcelona are not going for this player, not this player. Barcelona are not going for this player. They're not going for Bernardo Silva, because City want around 80 90 million pounds for Bernardo Silva. Now with Dembele, they've got 60. They can probably arrange 20 from somewhere and go for Bernardo Silva. So, I mean, I'm a bit surprised they've gone for Joao Cancelo actually, because Barcelona have a replacement for the right back already lined up. So, I don't know. Maybe I think it's difficult to price Bernardo Silva out from City. I don't know, uh, but Joao Cancelo is interesting. They've City are stating a fee of around 30 to 35 million pounds for Joao Cancelo. I mean, initial reports were around 50 million euros, but I think it will be around 35 to 40 million euros, not pounds. Sorry. So I think City would should sell him for that. But my question is, we sell Joao Cancelo. Are we gonna replace Joao Cancelo in the team in this transfer window, or do you just keep the money and do you say to yourself, well, I do not have a Joao Cancelo replacement available in the market right now, and I want to wait till the next summer transfer window, or I want to wait till the January transfer window, or wherever. Do you do that, or do you just go into the market and buy someone like a Benjamin Pavard for 30 40 million that you get from Joao Cancelo, or maybe buy someone like Ashraf Hakimi for 70, adding this 30, you put in a 40, 70 Ashraf Hakimi, he could be a replacement for Kyle Walker. What do you actually do with this Joao Cancelo situation now that is going? Because I know, I mean, people will come here and say in the comments that we have won a treble, Mohan, without Joao Cancelo, so we can play without Joao Cancelo. Well, just imagine this scenario. Akanji is injured. What do you and Kyle Walker is going off to Bayern. Okay, Kyle Walker stays. Akanji is injured. Suddenly, what do you have in that right back position? Nothing, because there are. I mean, what people are failing to realize here is Kyle Walker cannot play all of those matches, all of the big matches. Inter Milan final. Why did Pep choose Akanji over Kyle Walker? Bayern Munich first leg. Why did Pep Guardiola choose Akanji over Kyle Walker? There are certain games where you need a pure centre back to play there. There are certain games where you need a centre back who can split the lines. Akanji is a centre back who can split the line. Kyle Walker's strengths are pace. Kyle Walker's strengths are one-on-one defending. He cannot split the lines. Cancelo is someone who can split the lines for me, even though he did not play a huge part last season. We were lucky last season that Akanji was not injured. So just imagine Akanji injured. Suddenly you're very light on the right hand side. Imagining that Kyle Walker does not go to Bayern. Kyle Walker stays, Cancelo goes, and and you know Kyle Walker stays, Cancelo goes, and Akanji is there. You have Walker Akanji to play on the right. That's it. So now you could say Rico Lewis could play Mohan on that side, but Rico Lewis is come on, Rico Lewis is not good enough to play the right back position right now. He's physically not. He physically does not have that defensive prowess to play in the right back position right now. Rico Lewis. So for me, if you ask me this question, I think we need to go for Cancelo replacement. And for me, the obvious replacement here is Benjamin Pavard. I know we have discussed these previously on this channel, but now that Cancelo is just going, I think it's Benjamin Pavard because there's a dearth of right backs right now. Come on, if you just look around in the market, there are not many right backs who are actually uh, available. So I can remember Ashraf Hakimi, Benjamin Pavard. Who else are the right backs, guys? Let me know in the comments below. Who else are the right backs? There are not many right backs that you can actually sign right now. I don't know what's going on through Pep Guardiola's mind again. I mean, yeah, Pep's gonna sell Laporte. Pep's gonna sell Cancelo. Probably there are reports that Kyle Walker has not agreed a deal at the Etihad. So in the worst case scenario, imagine that all the three of them go in the best case scenario, Laporte and Cancelo go. So I mean, suddenly you just have four first choice defenders. You have Ruben Diaz, Nathan Ake, Kyle Walker. Imagining he's staying, Manuel Akanji, John Stones, Josko Guardiola. You have six defenders, but you just have two defenders who can play on the right. Diaz doesn't have the pace to play on the right. Uh, John Stones probably should go into the midfield for the system to work. You just have two defenders who can play on the right. That is something which is absolutely worrying me. That because that's the reason I think we need to go out and sign a replacement for Joao Cancelo. This next 1 week before the start of the season. Leave the Community Shield could be seen as a bit of a friendly, as a bit of a practice match, but this 1 week before the start of the next season, before the Burnley game, is going to be so crucial in order to replace Cancelo. I mean, it's you just can't underestimate it. I mean, I know we won the treble last year, but before that year, what happened? Why didn't we win the Champions League before that year? We didn't win the Champions League because not because Pep did not stumble upon us upon a system like four at the back, centre backs and stuff with John Stones going into the midfield. We did not win the Champions League 2 seasons back because against Atletico Madrid, all of our fullbacks were injured and Real Madrid just pounced upon it. We had Billy Fernandinho playing it left back and stuff. So that was one of the reasons why we did not win the Champions League 2 seasons back. So, and we were struggling in the Premier League as well with most of our defenders getting injured. See, those scenarios can happen. So it's very important that you replenish the players. It need not be a world class centre back or a world class full back to come in and replace Joao Cancelo. It could be someone who could grow in the next 2 years and stuff. It could be a Taylor Howard Bellis for everything if Joao Cancelo goes. I would be happy with the Taylor Howard Bellis getting chances because he's ready and is good enough for this level. But we must fill that Joao Cancelo gap with someone. You just can't let it run for another season and stuff. I mean, we have so many things to fill this season, right? Joao Cancelo is leaving, we have to fill him. Aymeric Laporte, we have filled him with Josko Guardiola. I'll actually agree with that. And then actually we have Riyad Mahrez's replacement to go to. I mean, I do not think we can actually go and actually fill in Joao Cancelo's replacement this season because this Josko Guardiola deal will be done by Friday, and after this Josko Guardiola deal, we actually have to find a replacement for Riyad Mahrez, and that will actually be so much interesting. That will be so much interesting. Who we will actually go after, because Michael Olise is a name that is actually being thrown upon, And Olise seems difficult because there has been news that Michael Olise has signed a new contract, and his new contract apparently does not have a release clause. So which means that I'm struggling to see here how we and Chelsea, we to an extent, because Chelsea have the alternative of Mohamed Kudus, and even if Chelsea don't sign Olise, they have like 20 wingers for that one position. They have so many options there, but we do not have any option. It's literally empty. Our space is empty there. But one thing about Crystal Palace, I do not understand how Crystal Palace can sell Olise. I think if Crystal Palace sell Olise, they'll get relegated. They are close to relegation, just like what happened with Leicester City last season. They Crystal Palace will go down because Zaha is left. Now, if Olise leaves, you certainly cannot replace those two people. Without Zaha and Olise, I think Crystal Palace is almost a mid-table championship team. I'm sorry, Zaha and Olise both are, along with Eze, the three are like the heart of Crystal Palace, the oxygen of Crystal Palace. So, I don't see how Crystal Palace can let Olise go. Even if you give 100 million, I think Crystal Palace will not let Olise go, because when it's a chance of your Premier League survival depending on that player, how would you let him go? Palace have done this with Zaha in the past. They have not let big money offers take Zaha. So I'm struggling to see how Olise will come. Vinay is here. Hey Vinay, how are you doing, mate? I'm so thrilled with Guardiola transfer. He will play versus Arsenal or bench. I think it's bench, Vinay, because his medical. I mean, reports are coming. His first part of his medical is scheduled to be done on Friday. I mean, not the first part. His entire medical is set to be completed by Friday. So I do not think Pep Guardiola will rush him against Arsenal in a Community Shield match. So because he has to train with his players, and it's not like we have all of our centre backs injured right now, right? So, but I think in the first game against Burnley, I I probably would see. I mean, I do not know this. This is interesting because you have Natanake playing at left back over there. Natanake has been superb in that left back position. Now, your Natanake, you have sat one season and you have snatched your place from Joao Cancelo and you have made it your own. You have been instrumental in helping City win the treble. Natanake had owned that left hand side completely. Without Natanake, we do not win the treble. I can write it down and sign it and do whatever I want. Without Natanake, I'm sorry, we are not winning the treble. He's been such a key part. So now, how do you? Now the question here is, Vinay, how do you bring in Josko Guardiola straight in the place of Natanake? That's going to be very interesting. You could probably rest Natanake for a match, but I don't know. I don't know how we will, manage this Natanake Josko Guardiola thing. How will he bring Josko Guardiola in there? That's actually going to be very interesting. But what I think Josko Guardiola gives you is, I mean, I know a lot of rival fans would probably hate me for saying this. They would say that I'm too overconfident to say this and stuff, but I would say that Josko Guardiola will make Man City borderline invincible, almost invincible, and especially in that. Especially when it comes to both the defensive and offensive departments, because one thing Josko Guardiola gives over Natanake is Josko Guardiola is. I mean, how many centre backs are there in the world, guys, who can break the lines with the passing? And if Josko Guardiola sees that he cannot break the line, he has the speed to get past the opponent. He has the skill to dribble past the opponent. So, how many centre backs in the world do you see who can dribble past the opponent, who can get past the opponent, or who can split the lines with their long range and short range passing? I mean, that is just super. So suddenly with Josko Guardiola, you have someone who can start attacks from the back, someone who's very good in. I mean, Josko Guardiola is a borderline. I mean, people say Erling Haaland is a robot up front. I say that Josko Guardiola is a robot at the back. He can do everything, and the combination of combining two robots is just. And we have our very own midfield robot in Kevin De Bruyne. This is just gonna be insane stuff. But my only question again will be, how do you make Natanake sit on that bench, and how do you play Josko Guardiola right in this place? I actually do not know the answer to that question. I mean, I would assume here that Pep Guardiola would do a lot of rotation. Like for example, Josko Guardiola and John Stones could be rotation, because last season, one of my friend who's a United fan, he was asking me that what if John Stones is injured. He was asking me in the middle of in March or April that what if John Stones is injured. I was like, the system's gone. There's no one who could do what John Stones did. Probably a Rodri coming into the midfield playing centre back. Otherwise, it's done. Now suddenly you can rest John Stones, right? Because Guardiola can come into the midfield from the left. So you can rotate Guardiola and John Stones like that. You can rotate Guardiola and Ake like that. Or you could even say that Guardiola you play in Ruben Diaz position and Ake on one side of you and Akanji on the other side of you. Or Guardiola could even actually play in that Rodri position as well. So it's supremely interesting how Pep Guardiola can. I mean, I think it was in the Athletic. It was written that Pep Guardiola can actually utilize Josko Guardiola and play four different systems: back four, three at the back with John Stones or Josko Guardiola coming into the midfield, Josko Guardiola going in playing as a DM. You suddenly have four systems where you could play him. He is just one of the best players on the ball in the Premier League. He's in the top four players with the ball at his feet on the Premier League, and he's a centre back. So that is just amazing what Guardiola can bring. Vinay says, what do you think of Casido alongside Rodri? Now that Cancelo plus Laporte are leaving, Casido can play right back to he's a workaholic machine. That again would just be a dream. That would just be a dream, right? Now just imagine this. I don't know. I don't even think rival teams will come to players. They'll say, we have given you a bye. Let us just enjoy the Saturday and Sunday. That's what rival teams will say. I think if you bring in Casido, because suddenly you have Casido. Just imagine this: Josko Guardiola left back, Ruben Diaz in the middle, John Stones, and then Casido at the right back. Suddenly you have Guardiola who could invert into the midfield, or you also have Casido who's comfortable inverting into the midfield. You have John Stones going into the midfield. You have all three of them who are excellent on the ball and whose passing range, especially long passing range, is superb. All three in Guardiola, Stones, and Casido do not give the ball away. Suddenly, there's no flaw in this defense at all. You bring in Casido, the game's just over, I think. Right now, a little bit of a, not a chink in the armor, but a little bit of a thing regarding the right back position for me. We have locked up the left back, but would Walker stay? Is Akanji? What will happen to him next season and stuff? But if Casido comes tonight, the game's done. The game's done if Casido comes. Casido would be a much, much better signing for us than Declan Rice. And I think that a deal could be possible. You give Calvin Phillips to Brighton and you pay 60 million for Casido or 70 million for Casido. And I think that would actually be a fair deal. Next season will be so interesting actually how Pep Guardiola will line up. But for me, the most interesting thing here is, see, one thing which will dictate how Pep Guardiola will line up is who will actually play on the right wing. I actually think, see, there are two schools of thought for me. I think if we did not get Josko Guardiola, I think we would have got Michael Olise. Now that we have got Josko Guardiola, I actually think that we will go and get Jeremy Doku there. The reason being, if you did not get Guardiola, suddenly you're relying on someone like an Laporte covering in sometimes, which means that you're not as covered up at the back in counter attacks. And Michael Olise, for example, would actually lock it up. He would not concede possession. But now we have got Josko Guardiola. It means that you could go with someone like a Jeremy Doku, who's fast, who's direct, and Pep will say, see, last season Newcastle was the tipping point for me. Last season Newcastle was what, prompted the system change from Pep Guardiola in March, sorry, in February to a to four at the centre back. Pep Guardiola against against Newcastle in October, 3-3 draw. He played Erling Haaland, he played Phil Ford in one wing, and I think he played Julian Alvarez on the other wing, I think, which was like an extremely counter-attacking system, which was like an extremely attacking system, and we got done by Newcastle on the counter-attack. After that match, Pep Guardiola never played those sort of wingers who are aggressive and wingers who can, who are direct. Now with Guardiola coming in, I think Pep Guardiola could actually repeat that system. Pep Guardiola could actually play suddenly what it does is you've created that space in the midfield, and also you've isolated the center back against Erling Haaland. This also means that the second center back will now have a choice whether to stay with Grealish or come and offer cover to Haaland. That means with this one change of bringing Doku and Guardiola playing the ball to him, you're isolating Jack Grealish 1v1 with the fullback, Doku 1v1 with the fullback, and Erling Haaland occupying two centre backs. Space for midfield runners. Grealish can beat his man. Doku can meet his man like he's not there. Phil Foden could play centrally this season, and that would just be superb. Certainly it would just be exciting. I just want that Jeremy Doku signing to happen. Vinay says 50 million euros plus Palmer. Vinay, actually, I don't think they let Cole Palmer go this season because Bernardo is the only player who can play at the right for us, and Bernardo might have to cover in the center of the midfield in certain games. I do not think Kovacic can play many games, so I think Bernardo will have his load cut out with playing in that center of the midfield and also on the wing. So you just have one option in Jeremy Doku, for example, if you buy him. So the right wing actually looks empty even if you buy a winger. So I think that is the reason why Cole Palmer could stay. You could argue Oscar Bob could play there, but for me, Oscar Bob is. See, Cole Palmer has played there for the last 2 3 years. Okay, he hasn't featured much, but he has played there. He knows the position inside out. For whatever reasons, it has not worked out. So I think Pep would be going for, and also there's another reason when there's a big reason why Cole Palmer could be staying, because the transfer news regarding Cole Palmer has actually died down because since the last 1.5 week. The reason being, Yuan Malilo is super fond of Cole Palmer. Yuan Malilo has See, since Yuan Malilo has left, it's been said that Cole Palmer's confidence has come down a bit. Now Yuan Malilo is coming, so it's been said that Pep wants Cole Palmer to develop under Yuan Malilo for a year and then see what happens. So I think there are several circumstances that probably say that Cole Palmer is staying more than leaving. Vinay says Doku makes more dribbles than Vinny. Concerned with his finishing, passing, and crossing in final third. Dribbling is like, there's that website, which is transferstats.com or something, where you look at the strengths and weaknesses of a player. And for Jeremy Doku, dribbling is like his super strength. It's like super good in dribbling. I think Jeremy Doku is one of the best dribblers in the world. He is better than, okay, he's young, but I think the potential of Jeremy Doku's dribbling is better than Vinicius Junior. I mean, I'm just comparing the speed at which they dribble. I mean, you have dribblers who can stop the ball, slow the play down like a Grealish does, or even a Mahrez does, and then go past a man, playing with the mind, the psychology of the defender. That is a different category. But Jeremy Doku is almost like the defender does not have time and space on the ball. Jeremy Doku is like, get the ball, boom, I go. 1, 2, go. Is almost like lightning quick. So, I mean, short passing is actually strength. When a short passing is actually the strength of Jeremy Doku, which I'm actually very fascinated by, because just imagine on the right hand side you suddenly have Kevin De Bruyne playing and Jeremy Doku there, and Jeremy Doku and Kevin De Bruyne playing 1-2s. Wow, that would just be wow. Just imagine the lightning speed with which, I mean, do you guys remember the days of Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling? David Silva feeding it to Leroy Sané and Kevin De Bruyne feeding it to Raheem Sterling. Those balls in between the lines. David Silva to Sane, boom, Sane goes winger to winger pass, goal. That's just superb. I mean, just looking at Jeremy Doku, I'm like actually getting those views of how David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne would set those wingers away. I mean, decision making is something. Decision making is something, like you said, crossing in the final third. The decision making is something that needs to improve. But then I guess it's just 21 years of age, and it will actually come with experience. But crossing and his finishing and crossing are actually good. His finishing and passing are actually good. Crossing and decision making needs to be improved. So So that is something which Pep will work on. I mean, if Pep Guardiola, okay, Mikel Arteta was there for Raheem Sterling, but if Pep Guardiola can improve the decision making of Raheem Sterling, who let us say was shit in terms of even finishing of open goals, I think Jeremy Doku would not take much time to actually finish off his chances. So I don't think finishing is and Juan Malilo is there, who's said to be one of the who is said to be really good in teaching players how to finish. He's said to be working on Cole Palmer's finishing as well, Cole Palmer's positioning, movement. The arrival of Juan Malilo is a transfer which no rival fan channel, no one is actually, not even the media is actually picking up. But I think if I put City's biggest transfers and people say rightly Josko Guardiol, but I would put Juan Malilo on par with Josko Guardiol transfer, because what Juan Malilo can bring would just not just transform Manchester City, but it would also transform how football how football is played defensively this season. I think because with the help of Guardiola and John Stones, Pep could devise, and with the help of Juan Malilo, Pep could devise a defensive strategy there that would just be borderline unbeatable, because Juan Malilo is said to be the master of arranging those defenses. He's said to be the master of 4-2-3-1. He's said to be the master of covering up those defensive spaces. Juan Malilo is said to be the master of transitions, said to be the master of breaking the lines on how teams react in transitions, how teams can break the lines. And here he is, Guardiola and Kovacic, who are extremely good at breaking the lines in two players. So it would be this season will be very very exciting, starting from the Community Shield. I mean, I do not know what will happen in the Community Shield, but this season we are just gonna see something else from Pep. I think it will be the high tempo football. I would not be surprised if Pep would say three of you sit back and the rest of the team go and enjoy. Just enjoy your football. Vinay says Olise not available till October. Doku is looking close. But Vinay, Olise for me somehow, I mean, if Olise comes to City, I will surely support Olise. But Olise for me somehow is not creating that excitement, because Olise is almost like a like for like Mahrez, and you're like thinking it will be the same thing again. Grealish, Mahrez feeding the balls to Haaland. I mean, it's not bad. We won the treble with that system. But then with Jeremy Doku, suddenly you're just spicing things up. You're suddenly catching your opponents off guard, because opponents would already have started planning for that system of Grealish, Mahrez, or Grealish, Palmer. Those sort of wingers. Opponents would say, stay narrow, stay deep, mark Erling Haaland tight. Grealish and Mahrez, they're slow wingers. You don't need to go touch tight to them. You can manage it well and stuff. But now with Jeremy Doku, suddenly the defenders can't defend narrow, because if they defend narrow, Doku is like boom. He like shred them to pieces. They with his speed, with his ability to hold the width, with his ability to dribble, he can just stretch the entire defense, which a Mahrez cannot. So and a Olise cannot. So for me, Jeremy Doku is actually looking like the signing which I would really be interested with. Belgian connection, that would just be a dream. That would just be a dream when I Belgium connection. Kevin De Bruyne, Jeremy Doku. That would just be wonderful. Vinay says, well, Haaland scored 25 plus goals next season. He was mostly isolated during the end of the season. I mean, he took on the graveyard shift for the team, I think, Vinay, against Inter Milan, against Real Madrid. I mean, I actually I mean, when all of the media was telling that Erling Haaland went missing against Real Madrid first leg, went missing against Real Madrid second leg to an extent, and all of that, and Inter, he was non-existent. I got a bit angry, because even though he was isolated, Erling Haaland put in graveyard shift. Like you said, when Haaland was isolated, but he put in a graveyard shift. He made 20-30 runs, which stretched the defenders out of position. Defenders out of position. How did Akanji score that? Sorry, Akanji assist Rodri in scoring the goal in the Champions League final, because Haaland was covering the defense. So I actually think that Erling Haaland, he was isolated, but he gave so much to the team, even without scoring goals. But this season, I think that's why Jeremy Doku is so important again. And also I think Vinay, with Josko Guardiola coming in, regardless of we get Jeremy Doku or not, Guardiola, if you see his clips, Guardiola is always looking to play those through balls. Kovacic is looking to play those through balls. So now suddenly De Bruyne always plays those through balls. So suddenly you now have three players who are capable of playing that through ball, uh, on the ground and in the air as well. And Pep's instruction to his players would be play Erling Haaland more this season, because I have got a rock solid defense behind me. It doesn't matter even if we get hit on the break, because my defense is solid enough to catch it up. We didn't have it to an extent last season, but this season we are ready. So I think this season Erling Haaland could actually hit. I think he'll score more than 40 goals in the Premier League alone this season. Erling Haaland. I know this is a bit, this could be a bit too much overboard, but I think Erling Haaland could score 60 goals this season, all competitions. I think the aim for Haaland should be 40 goals in the Premier League itself. That should be the aim. Because Haaland went goalless in certain patches last season, for example, January to March or something like that. And this season with this team, I don't see Haaland going through those patches. Vinay says, yeah, I agree with that. Slow wingers weren't a danger for teams. Pace is what we love. Watch, and yes, Doku is exciting. I mean, exciting. And Vinay, I'm just sitting here and thinking the nostalgia it would bring back to all of us, remembering that Centurion season, right? If Jeremy Doku actually comes back, if Jeremy Doku comes, the nostalgia of Leroy Sané, the nostalgia of Raheem Sterling, those moments, Leroy Sané, David Silva. I mean, I still can't get it out of my mind. That is just so exciting. I still watch those clips. That is some. I mean, that is some of the best football I've ever seen. What the Centurions team played, especially that connection, how Leroy Sané would run, go behind defenses, and the defenses could do nothing, knowing that. Just imagine having Leroy Sané on one side and Jeremy Doku on the other side now. That would just be brutal. And also actually Liverpool fans, I mean not Liverpool fans, but there was a Liverpool outlet, I think it was telling that when Klopp tracked Jeremy Doku 2 years back, they all thought that Klopp thought that Jeremy Doku would be the natural successor to Sadio Mane. I mean, and you could see some of the traits of of Sadio Mane in Jeremy Doku. Like, I think one of the traits which Sadio Mane has, and which maybe just a Leroy Sané has and no one else has, is the directness. Sadio Mane is give one to Firmino on it. Leroy Sané used to do it with David Silva. Sterling used to do it with Kevin De Bruyne. I think Jeremy Doku has that directness, that 1-2 passing, arriving in the box, that ability to work hard, ability to press. It's just superb. Vinay says real Haaland 51 million, fake Haaland 70 million. It's hilarious, Vinay. It's actually hilarious that they are comparing. I'm still okay that if a fan channel is comparing Haaland to Haaland, you can think that they're delusional. Like sometimes AFTV goes, and most of the times, your people like Mark Goldbridge go delusional. But I'm like, what the hell is Sky Sports doing? I mean, Sky Sports was comparing Hoyland with Haaland, and they literally assembled a three bench panel of ex editors or ex media people, ex players to discuss and compare the stats between Hoyland and Haaland. I'm like, wow, the media in UK is just a joke. I mean, Hoyland at that time when he at this time when he's come to United has not even had a full season in Europe, and Haaland was breaking records left and right before he came to City. At Dortmund, he was the best player in the Bundesliga for 2 seasons running. In Europe, he already was smashing goal records, and he already was the fastest to 10 goals, 15 goals, whatever the stat. He was winning Golden Boot after Golden Boot in the Bundesliga and the Champions League as well. So I mean, the comparison is just hilarious. And also, I was just talking about Hoyland to another friend who is actually a Liverpool fan, and we have a bit of a banter about United. And you know what he was telling? We were talking about Hoyland, and he was telling Hoyland's finishing is almost borderline similar to Raheem Sterling. And I was like looking at him for a moment and I was like, how did you even think of the comparison? And we both laughed for 2-3 minutes at least. I mean, he suddenly had Raheem Sterling in mind when he saw Hoyland's finishing actually. So I think it's just a crime based on the finishing itself, because Haaland is known for his finishing, and that is exactly not the strength of Hoyland actually. So that's just hilarious. But one thing's for sure, when Hoyland's finishing is, I think Raheem Sterling probably finishes better than Rasmus Hoyland. Vinicius with one wing being pacey and other being holding new attacking tactics. How Haaland will get affected. And also another other thing, Vinay, about Haaland getting affected. You know, Phil Foden is gonna play in zone 14. They say Phil Foden is gonna play in zone 14 from this season. Like we have seen in preseason, Pep is moving Foden centrally. He started Foden centrally in most of the matches. And zone 14 is, I mean, I think we just have to remember Real Madrid against City second leg. How did Phil Foden assist Julian Alvarez? Atletico Madrid 2 seasons back quarter final. Kevin De Bruyne in zone 14 assisted Phil Foden in that zone 14 assisted Kevin De Bruyne. So Phil Foden is actually a master in playing that zone 14. Zone 14 is the zone just behind the striker. You've seen against Inter Milan, for example, Phil Foden spun his man and went through 1v1. He didn't finish well with the keeper in the 80th minute. So I think we'll also have to keep in mind Phil Foden getting his zone 14. And we'll have to remember Phil Foden is excellent at playing those through balls as well. So now suddenly in the midfield, you have Mateo Kovacic who can play those through balls and break the lines. You have Phil Foden who can play those through balls and break the lines. You have Kevin De Bruyne who is a master at playing those through balls. And at the back you have John Stones, who is, remember Arsenal game, Stones ball to Haaland, De Bruyne running goal. Stones is excellent at playing those balls over the top. Guardiola is probably the best after Kevin De Bruyne in terms of breaking lines from the back. Suddenly you have five players who are excellent at breaking lines from the back. I mean, this teams will get scared to high press us. That's what I would say. I mean, I am excited to see how will teams attempt to high press us. This is just so exciting because you suddenly have people. If teams attempt to high presses, you suddenly have people like Guardiola, like a Kovacic, like a Foden, who can play those through balls and also who can drop your shoulder and get past the man. This is what a pressing team dreads, right? Someone who can play those through balls and accurately find the strikers, who can drop the shoulder and get past the man. Arsenal, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal just sits back and does nothing actually. JSK says doing business with Barca is not a is not a wise decision. But JSK, honestly, we do not want Cancelo. Most of the City fan base do not want Cancelo. I mean, I know in the preseason matches, I was excited with the way Cancelo was playing. In that spur of the moment, because Cancelo has given us many good performances. But the truth of the matter is, Cancelo doesn't fit the system. Cancelo's time is done. Cancelo is not good enough to deal with 1v1 defending. Can Cancelo defend wide spaces? I'm afraid he does not. Fulham game last season, if you remember, in the first half, when Cancelo was our best player, Cancelo gave a penalty away because the reason he was asked to defend wide space and he couldn't. His opposite winger got past him. Cancelo is not good enough at defending wide spaces, and he loses the ball a bit more than what Pep actually likes. So I think Cancelo doesn't fit the system. So I think just sell him and recoup 40 million. Now that we know that Barca have the money, recoup 40 million for Cancelo, spend that 40 million on Jeremy Doku. Suddenly this transfer window is going like we might have a net spend of zero actually, because if you look at it, Cancelo for 40 million, spend it on Jeremy Doku. It's done. Remember, we have 30 million from Mahrez as well. Then we have 20 million from James Trafford, and that is 50 million, and then we have money from Carlos Borges. Laporte is going to be sold for 40 million. So suddenly your Roscoe Guardiola transfer is free. Suddenly your Jeremy Doku transfer is free. Our next spend is zero in this window, and the next spend of Arsenal is 250 to 300 million. With the goalkeeper, the Arsenal's net spend is 300 million pounds this season. JSK says they will now go after Bernardo and probably Rodri in a few years. I don't think Rodri will ever leave. I don't think Rodri will leave. But Bernardo, it's the same thing. I think City are giving Bernardo a contract of for the next 3 4 years. I mean, anyway, Bernardo is contracted for 2027, right? Which means he'll be 32 by then, at least. And which means that Barcelona would not be interested in him at that age, to be fair. I just hope we don't lose Bernardo this season. I just hope we don't lose Bernardo this season because that would be the last thing. He is one player who I do not think is replaceable. I mean, it's not that he's not replaceable because Nicolo Barella is a replacement that we have lined up for him. We get 80 for Bernardo if he goes, and then we pay 60 70 for Nicolo Barella. But my thing is, Bernardo can play in the midfield and also he can play at the right back position. And Barella cannot do that. So I would prefer keeping Bernardo Silva actually. JSK says Maxima Parone shouldn't be on loan. I don't trust Phillips as the backup of Rodri. But I think this is the season, JSK. Honestly, if Calvin Phillips cannot perform this season, I think Calvin Phillips is done. Calvin Phillips is done at this club. I think this season is going to be so very important for Calvin Phillips because I cannot imagine Rodri, you know, playing the entire this season because we have to remember he's played the entire last season with the World Cup. The season before he's not had much rest, so it's just going to be inevitable before we lose Rodri to injury, even though I don't want it. So it's just that Calvin Phillips has to share a lot of game time and take the load of Rodri this season. I mean, in preseason, if you see Kovacic is actually interesting. Pepe's tried playing Kovacic as just a holding midfielder. But I wouldn't be surprised if Calvin Phillips doesn't perform. You could see Josko Guardiola holding with Diaz, Ake, and Akanji playing in the back three, or Stones holding with Diaz, Guardiola, and Akanji playing in the back three. So I think we have options. It's not Phillips or nothing. But I think if Calvin Phillips doesn't perform, I think Pep Guardiola has options in Guardiola and John Stones who can play there. Vinay says Barca is clueless, unsettled, and paying for Bartomeu's deeds. Only few players there are confirmed. Most of others' future is uncertain. And Barca fans, Vinay, are also shit scared. They are shit scared of what is happening at Real Madrid. You suddenly see Real Madrid Vinicius Junior at one end, Rodrigo on the other side, and they have Jude Bellingham, Camavinga, Suamini. They have got Arda Güler, I think, who Barcelona desperately wanted, and Arda Güler is a baller in midfield. To be fair, Rudiger, Adam Militao, they are gonna get. I think they are gonna replace Gani Carvajal with Ashraf Hakimi. I think if I'm not wrong, and Ferland Mendy with Alfonso Davis. And once they get Kylian Mbappe next season, maybe not this season, but next season, you suddenly, I think they'll just. I don't know what will happen to La Liga there. It could just be so much one-sided. I mean, Barca are just fearing Real Madrid. They do not have money for the transfers, and on the other side, Saudi is giving so much wages. Premier League is giving so much wages. They're not able to compete with wages on the player front. Gone are the days when players are telling we want to come to Barca and take a wage cut. People are telling there's so much wage in Saudi Arabia. Premier League is giving 200, 300,000 pounds easily. I would play, in fact, in the Premier League than take a pay cut over there. The top coaches are in the Premier League. The top managers, the top coaches, the top infrastructure, everything is in the Premier League. The top players are in the Premier League. So why don't I play in the Premier League? That's what the players are actually. Gone are the days when you can depend on the badge of Barcelona, for example, to be fair. The badge of Barcelona could have just saved Barcelona for that amount of time. You can't just, this is not me going on Barca fans, but you can't just rely on your badge for 40, 50 years and say, you have to come to me because of the badge. How many players now go to AC Milan just because of the badge outside Italy? From the Premier League? Not many. How many of the players go to Inter Milan because of the badge outside of Italy? No one, right? It's football is just moving in a different direction, to be fair. JSK says Florian Wirtz is the replacement of Bernardo Silva. I don't actually think Florian Wirtz is the replacement of Bernardo Silva JSK. I think Florian Wirtz is a player who is similar to a Kevin De Bruyne. He's technically very good. He can play those through balls. He's very attacking. For me, Florian Wirtz is an attacking mid, but Bernardo Silva is a dynamo. Bernardo Silva is capable of, against RB Leipzig, Pep Guardiola told after the second leg that he asked Bernardo Silva to mark Josko Guardiol and Sabozala both at the same time. I mean, he asked him to, cut off the passing lane between both, between Guardiol and Sabozala, to be fair, which almost is like marking two players at once. How many players in the world can carry out a marking job using the intelligence to cover the angles and stuff to cut off the passing lanes and mark two players at once? I can just remember Bernardo Silva. Uh, I can actually remember Nicolo Barella. I, apart from these two players, I actually cannot remember any other players. Not even Declan Rice can do that. And I think Nicolo Barella is the player closest to Bernardo Silva available in the market right now. So not even a Declan Rice. Probably an N'Golo Kante could have done that in his heyday, but right now I think it's uh, maybe a Bisauma has the intelligence to do that, but I don't know. But right now I think it's Nicolo Barella who is like the perfect replacement for Bernardo Silva. If Bernardo Silva leaves and we actually enter the worst case scenario, so quite a bit of transfer news today, and I'm actually very excited in the way we are going with. I mean, how we discussed in terms of the pace up front, in terms of the exciting players we have like Guardiola, Kovacic, Foden, who can all break the lines with their passes. It's just gonna be it's just gonna be superb. It's just gonna be superb this season. It's just gonna be so excited. Cannot actually wait for the community shield to start, because I just want to know the system which Pep Guardiola is gonna play. I just want us to get Jeremy Doku now, play Foden centrally, and that's it. Get ready for the season. It's not gonna be a City like the second half of last season where we defend, and then look at moments in attack. This season we are gonna attack on our own will. This season we are gonna go past teams like they don't exist, with all the flair, with all the panache. And also we have a solid defensive line who can defend counter attacks 1v1s on their own. So this is going to be a fearless version of City. This is going to be a version of City that is just not going to show respect to any defense. We are just going to blast them over. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining me, and I'll again come back in front of you with the latest transfer news and stuff regarding City. And this is just such an exciting time right now to be talking about City. It's just wonderful, the transfer news. We are certainly moving in the right direction, and this guy is just superb. I would say this guy is gonna make us borderline unpenetrable. Could actually make us borderline, defensive steel. What a signing! Josko Guardiola and Jeremy Doku for me would complete it. Thank you guys for joining me, and take care, and thanks a lot again for all of the comments, and thank you for engaging with me with the comments and stuff. It's always a pleasure speaking with you all, guys, and